Hey there, today I'm going to go over a few characters that either have a trick to playing them or their potential has a really high ceiling, but also a really low floor. I hope to give you guys a few tips and strategies so that you can learn from my mistakes in the game. My name is Nate, and welcome to the Gamers Guild. While there can be a case made for several characters that have a light bulb moment when you are playing them, or that some other characters have a much steeper learning curve, and I would agree. The purpose of this video is to give you 2 tips on how to best use these 3 characters, and 1 tip for tearing them down. And the first character I'm going to cover might be the most controversial one on whether or not he is worth it: Hulk. Part of the problem with Hulk that I have and many others have is that we see the indestructible wrecking ball that can only go down in the most extreme of circumstances from all the comics and movies. That is not the Hulk that we received in this miniatures game. The Hulk we ended up with is still very powerful, worth his 6th threat, and will open your opponent up to making some mistakes if they are not prepared for him. So Hulk tip number 1, don't always bring Hulk. Really, the first problem that you can easily have for Hulk is putting him into a mission where he does not belong. There are specific instances where Hulk will not shine, and here are a few things to be paying attention for. Does your opponent have Killmonger in the roster? Probably not a good time to bring Hulk. Are the secure objectives spread out like in Extremis consoles? Has the game setup allowed for a high threat value, or can your opponent easily bring 2 more activations than you, like the Guardians of the Galaxy? Don't bring Hulk. Bruce Gone Mad does his best work when characters are forced to central points like Gamma Waves and Origin Bombs, where Hulk has to be dealt with to one degree or another. If your opponent chooses to ignore Hulk in a close quarters situation, it means that your Hulk isn't going to be getting his crazy turns like he can, but he is still getting 3 power every turn, which is enough to thunderclap or throw size 4 things. Then with the Avenger or Cabal affiliation, that power can go even further. If they do choose to deal with Hulk, the rest of your team can shine, and Hulk is able to get at least 1 or 2 crazy powerful turns before going down, because at a lower threat level, there just is not as much damage that can be dealt to Hulk in a round as there would be in a higher threat game. All of this to say Hulk is a unique character, whereas most releases we have so far can do fairly well in most situations. Hulk will either thrive or die by the crisis he is sent into. So make sure you're setting your Hulk up for success, which leads me to my second tip for Hulk: support him. Hulk is a 6th threat character, which means in most games he will at least be 1/3 of your team's threat. So you're already leaning on Hulk to do most of the work for you. That said, Hulk is going to need support in some way or another. The most generic and maybe best way is patch up. And then the Avengers have some tactic cards as well that work good with him, like Avengers Assemble and Second Wind, but never Anger Management. It is a reverse patch up and saps another one of your character's powers. Just don't do it. As well, the Avengers have a leadership ability that helps out with any power problems he might be encountering. And probably, and most importantly with the Avengers, you get Captain America there to bodyguard for him when he gets a little bit more damaged. Support from the Cabal is nice between Red Skull's teleport, Red Skull being able to throw attacks at Hulk in the early game, Red Skull's leadership ability to give Hulk power for his attacks, which he wouldn't have otherwise, and Red Skull's tactic card, Cosmic Invigoration. Really, Hulk and Red Skull just play really well together. Unfortunately, Hulk doesn't benefit much from Wakanda, but he loves being with his buddy Goldilocks because the Prince of Asgard can make sure Hulk gets both of his actions, resisting things like stagger or stun, or the chance to heal every single round. So all of this to say, don't throw Hulk out against your opponent's front line alone, have a plan to back him up with something, and from there just watch him do work. Now for the secret stuff to pull Hulk apart, basically the reverse of my first tip. If you see your opponent has a Hulk and a tactic card like Gamma Throw, choose an objective that will leave Hulk moving around a lot, and then control characters that would already shine in these situations, like Shuri or Spider-Man, will be that much better at dealing with the Hulk. Or bring characters like Captain Marvel and Killmonger that can take out the Hulk quickly if he is brought into a game. Like I said earlier, Hulk will die or thrive based on the setup, and just make sure it's not favorable for him. The next green character I want to talk about is Hella. She is a pretty straightforward character at a glance, but poor mitigation of her very unique soul economy will ensure you don't get your full 4 threat out of her. Tip number 1 is always use Soul Snatch, like always. If nothing else has happened with her turn 2, she will have enough power for 2 Soul Snatch attacks, and this will probably daze someone, or someone else will be dazed before round 2 is over, and then she is set. And once you get your 3 souls, make sure you can end her activation with 3 souls. So when you go with her, and if she has already 3 soul tokens, make sure you can soul snatch as many souls back as you're going to spend on your first attack. So on average, this means spending 2 souls, because if you daze someone with that first attack, then congratulations, you have your 2 souls back, just like that. And if you didn't daze them, you still get 1 back for damaging them. Then you get a second soul snatch off and get back to your set of 3. You really want to keep 3 even on the healthy side, because if she gets dazed, she stops gaining souls. And then if your opponent has priority in that next round, Hella is pretty much doomed. With that in mind, tip number 2 is timing her activation. On her healthy side, it doesn't really matter as much when she activates, just use your best judgment. However, once she is on her injured side, you want to make sure she is going later or last if she has her 3 souls. That way, if along the way Hella gets knocked out and loses her souls, you can immediately activate her and then get them back with a couple of soul snatches. If it can't be avoided, like Zemo is about to run away with an objective, sure, go with her. But you might be punished for it later on. The only other time that Hella should activate early is if my tip to destroy her presents itself. And that tip is getting 3 different attacks or throws off in a row. This will bust through her ability, it'll push through Odin's Blessing, and brace for impact. The characters that can do this best are Okoye and Valkyrie with their Flurry ability tagged onto their big attacks that allow them to make an additional strike after that first attack is resolved. Then characters that have throws built into their attacks like Thor and Hulk, who also have a throw in their superpowers to just find different ways to remove souls before getting those last 4 hit points of damage in. As well as any tactic card like Follow Me will be able to put that extra little bit of hurt onto Hella to make sure she goes down before she gets a chance to replenish her souls. So, that is how you can get a full 4 threat out of Hella, or making sure your opponent doesn't get the full value. Before I get into the last character, I want to talk about why this video isn't just about characters with the highest learning curve. Characters like Loki and MODOK have some of the most potential in this game, and can look great even if they aren't being played to their highest potential. These characters that have multiple choices on what to do with their actions, power, and superpowers are the ones where amazing plays can happen. But also trying to use Trickster every time with Loki will burn through your power to leave him looking rather lackluster. The reason it is hard to give solid advice for these more board-controlling characters is because there are too many variables in a game to say always do X or always do Y. While thankfully some of the characters can be better optimized with just a couple of tips like Hulk and Hella, this isn't the case for everyone. Sometimes it'll just take better understanding of the game and priorities on the board to get the best use out of these more strategic characters, which just comes with time and experience. The last character I'm going to cover falls into this category of a strategic support character, so hopefully these tips will help you learn from my mistakes while leading the Cabal with Red Skull. At a first look, Red Skull encourages a much more aggressive playstyle with his leadership ability, and the fact that he has a decent helping of long-range attacks doesn't hurt. The things that I'm going to cover with you while playing with Red Skull is when to use Cosmic Invigoration, and remembering to do a pretty basic part of the game with him. First things first, if you are running a Cabal list and you do not bring Cosmic Invigoration, please let me know why down in the comments below, because it is one of the best tactic cards in the game that I would love to run in every single roster, but I don't always play Cabal. Extra activations are great, especially when it can be given to heavy hitters like MODOK, Hulk, and Thor. Now, when you do use it, make sure that the target has at least 3 stamina remaining, because otherwise you may have just used a tactic card and your own power to daze or KO one of your own characters. This card is one that typically is best played before you declare who is activating for the turn. That way you can immediately get the value out of that character before your opponent comes in to try to deal with a fresh model. If you don't think you can do that, good news, you can. Here's a direct response from Atomic Mass Games about it. It is worth noting that this timing window doesn't happen if you have already activated all of your characters though. My last tip for this ability is to use it on a game-winning kind of play. Get an extra activation out of a major damage dealer like Thor, Hulk, or Killmonger to remove a threat from your opponent's side of the board, or give Zemo an extra chance at a long move to score the Wakandan Herb's 4 points around early. A surprise activation that Red Skull can hand out should be devastating to your opponent, so make sure that it is. The other tip that I can pretty firmly give for the Skull is don't forget to attack. Because Red Skull can sometimes act as a power bank with his Cosmic Cube action to get power to help teleport an ally or use tactic cards like Cosmic Invigoration, Advanced R&D, and Field Dressing, his other action ends up being a move to make sure he is positioned well to act as that support. My advice is to make sure Red Skull is in the thick of a fight, not sitting on a back objective just providing teleports occasionally and a solid leadership ability. If things get too hot for him, you can Hail Hydra and attack away to a friendly model, but this is usually only worth doing if he is about to be removed, because otherwise he is spending power to avoid getting power. Yes, getting damage is bad, but with the system that Atomic Mass Games has set up for us, some characters are meant to take damage and come back swinging hard. And Red Skull is one of those characters with an attack that has a chance for a throw and does AoE damage. As well, Red Skull taking some damage will allow him to still provide teleports and his other tactic card support duties while still dealing some significant damage. So, what is the best way to deal with a support character that can pump out some damage? It depends on what your opponent is doing with him. If he is holding a back objective away from other models and maybe occasionally helping out with a teleport, it is almost safe to just leave him alone because he will usually take a point of damage each time he uses an action to get 3 power, and if my opponent is using 4 threat to hold a back objective and occasionally move somebody, I'm okay with it. If your opponent has sent him forward and you have an angle to push, pull, or throw him to a place where he can no longer Hail Hydra to a buddy, do that, and then just treat him like any other 4 threat character and beat him up if you have the chance. Red Skull is a character that we could go in much deeper about what characters are worth using the Master of the Cube teleport ability on, or who to use Hail Hydra on. And more of these kind of questions require answers that deal with what objectives are in play, what characters you have, and what your opponent has access to. And in a couple of months worth of new releases, the advice probably wouldn't hold up anymore. So for Red Skull and pretty much any other model, the best way to get better with them and getting a better grasp on some of the strategies is just playing games. And then when cleaning up the battlefield, discuss with your opponent what you think went well or ask for advice on what they would have done differently at a certain point. As usual, I do have a question for you all as well. Is there a character that you are struggling to figure out? And if so, would you like to see a video similar to this for him or her? Or do you disagree with any of my thoughts? And if so, what have you guys found to be good ways to play these characters? Until next time, guys, thanks for watching, and keep on gaming.